Hello, everybody, and welcome to the third installment of the weekly wadai. My name is Micah, and this is the Hetere Gaijin podcast, a podcast in which we discuss Japanese topics, language topics, and whatever other meaningless ramblings come spewing out of my mouth. Before we get into today's topics, I want to first say thank you always for listening, and that I'm starting to upload these episodes onto Spotify. So if you would like to listen through there, you can give it a little search. That's Hetere Gaijin, using katakana and kanji. Also, if you guys want to be super nice, my best friends forever, you can get onto iTunes and give me a 5-star review. That'll help it boost it up a little bit and get people aware of it that aren't currently listening. It can potentially help our community grow. Today on the podcast, I'm going to be talking about what Japanese people think foreigners should be aware of before they come to the country, a new language app that may be a game changer for many of us, a change in the Japanese education system that may mean new jobs for foreigners, and cherry blossoms in October. What is going on? What is this? It's the apocalypse. What's next? Is Four Horsemen? Minagames is ridiculous. What's going on? And also, some of you may have noticed in the distance, that looming cloud that is ever approaching. That's right, I am talking about the Nihongo no Ryoku Shiken, or the Japanese Language Proficiency Test, or for short, the JLPT. That's right, we have 42 days left until the time comes. Are you guys taking the test? I was planning on taking the JLPT too, but I lacked the funds, the 5,500 yen I think it costs, to sign up for it this year. So I have decided to wait until next year, I think, when they have the test again in July. In Japan, it is a biannual test. There is usually one time in July, one time in December. But abroad, at least in America, I think it's annually, so it only happens once a year. For those of you who don't know what I am talking about, there is a standardized test which you can use to measure comprehension ability, and there's 5 levels to it. Last time I checked, there's the level 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and they get more difficult in descending order. So 5 being the easiest, and 1 is the last one and the most difficult one. The other day on the Learn Japanese subreddit, I noticed somebody asked a question of whether or not it was meaningful or practical for them or useful for them to take the test. And his question just sat there for a while, so I decided to answer, at least give my opinion on the matter. For whatever reason, I think there's a lot of these posts on Learn Japanese get downvoted pretty quickly. I know I've tried to post the podcast up there a few times. Sometimes it got upvoted, but a lot of times it just dropped. It went straight to 0 and it never climbed from there. So yeah, I don't know. The people who hang out around here are a little strict sometimes. This was just an honest question, and it currently still has 0 upvotes. Anyway, the question was, so this comes from user Donshibe, or Donshibe, I don't know. It says, so I studied with the Kanzen Master Series until N2, and realized that it doesn't help much with conversations, and Japanese used in business situations. So I was wondering, is it a waste of time if you want to get a job the fastest way, or should I study for the JLPT 1? Not being able to express what I'm thinking fluently is causing me stress a lot. So he's got kind of a point here, but this is it really depends on how convincing your Japanese ability becomes. If you're able to fill out a resume in Japanese and interview in Japanese without any problems, it might be more practical to try to study for these situations. But regardless of where your speaking ability is, many companies who hire foreigners do ask for at least a N2 or level 2, but most of them require level 1. With that said, I think it would benefit you more to practice live conversations while studying for the N1 because you want to create as many overlaps as possible. I've talked about these overlap concepts in a previous podcast episode. If you get to the point where you can have a casual conversation relatively easily, You can ask Japanese people for advice and have them help you get ready for business life. You can't really learn how to do something in a book and expect to be able to do it immediately in practice. There's a lot of there's muscle memory involved in, physically speaking. It's kind of like the same thing as, for example, learning how to swim without getting in the water. You need to build off of experience using the language in order to have the confidence and ability to speak a second language in a professional manner. So was my advice. That was basically my advice to Don Scheib. Yeah, so it just depends, because for me, I haven't taken the JLPT yet, but I'm able to hold a relatively meaningful conversation in Japanese, as you guys may have noticed through listening to my Japanese conversation episodes. But I do lack a lot of confidence with polite forms, especially forms that you're expected to use in the workplace, where there is rank involved. For example, keigo or teinego. Also, talking to customers and things using the correct forms of speech. I don't have a lot of practice doing that. Most of my practice is just casual conversations, so I do have a little bit of confidence speaking casually, but when it comes to how to speak appropriately in the workplace, not so much. But this is something that I think can only be alleviated or achieved by actually practicing and being in situations in which you do have to use it. That means putting yourself in the awkward situation of not really knowing what to do and just trying to force your way through it and make a lot of mistakes. Because it's only through mistakes that you're going to learn and get better. With that said, I think it is the best route, to take the JLPT-1, even though it doesn't give you the speaking experience or the speaking practice required to qualify for a job, at least on paper, which, means a lot in this country. It qualifies you to have a job. It qualifies you to have a job that would require you to use Japanese. So even if you don't have confidence speaking or being able to communicate your feelings and what you want to say clearly and fluidly, it will put you in a situation where it's basically sink or swim, right? If you don't adapt and grow quickly enough, you'll get fired and you'll just have to find a new job. But, I doubt that'll happen. You're just going to have to do your best, of course, as always, and kind of just dive right in and hope for the best. I feel like that's the way that most people get good at languages, at least in my experience in Japanese. I think I've mentioned this before. It's only I've been in Japan for 7 years, and it's only these past 2 or 3 years that I finally built up the confidence to assert myself linguistically in Japanese, and thus, make a lot of mistakes and feel silly sometimes. But that really is the only way to get better and actually using the language. So yeah, take the JLPT, just get in the door, and then figure it out from there is really the short answer to that question. So where are you guys at? Are you guys telling me for the JLPT? Which level are you studying for? And have you taken it before? I've never taken it. I've tried to study for it several times, but always ended up... There was one time that I signed up for the JLPT2, 4 years ago, and I was studying. I didn't have the confidence that I was going to pass, and then I ended up just not going, so I just wasted my money. So I might just hold out to do the JLPT1, because I feel like, if anything, that's the one that's going to qualify me for whatever job I'm going to want to get once I can get past this English teaching thing. Speaking of English teaching, okay, so the laws in Japan are going to change in 2020, or the Japanese education system is they're going to see a slight change starting in 2020. So as of now, for those of you who have taught as an ALT, you might already know this. But they start teaching English, quote unquote, teaching English in elementary school grade 5 and 6. But it's not really an official subject. That means there's no tests. They're not getting a grade. It's a thing that they call eigo katsudo. Katsudo is like activity, so eigo is an English activity. So basically just like singing songs, playing games, learning a little bit of vocabulary, and playing some games with them and things like that. Nothing too serious, and it's just like once a week. But starting in 2020, that's all going to change, and the way that they teach Japanese in junior high, grade 1 and 2, I guess, that's going to come down to 5th and 6th grade elementary school students. And then the eigo katsudo is going to go down to the 3rd and 4th year elementary school students. So they're going to start getting them ready for the English as an official subject earlier. And so I think this means that there's probably going to be a lot more of a demand coming in the next couple of years of native speakers to become teachers and work as an ALT. And let me tell you, I've done all the work, more or less, except for like business English. I've never taught business English, but I've done the, eikaiwa stuff. I've worked as an ALT, and I currently work at like an international preschool. So I've kind of seen, I've dabbled in all the different types of jobs, most of them at least. And in my opinion, at least for me personally, and some people will disagree with me, I prefer the ALT job because at the time that I did it, I only did it for 1 year before I moved to Tokyo. But I assume a lot of you are the same. My whole purpose for coming to Japan was not to teach English, but to get better at Japanese and kind of immerse myself in the culture of it. And I got to tell you, like, when you work in a school, first of all, you're not working for a company. Really, it's not a business, as are the jukus and the eikaiwas and things like that. So there's no real customer besides the people who hired you. Those are the people that you have to stay on their good side. And also, when you're working at a Japanese school, they have an English teacher, a Japanese English teacher. But depending on where you are and who they are, their English ability is going to be somewhat limited. That means all the other staff, and even, and of course the kids, they're not going to speak any English at all. So that's a really good situation, a really good opportunity for you to practice and use your Japanese. And being able to speak Japanese as well will actually put the hearts and minds of the other non-English speaking staff at ease. Because the main thing that stresses people out about foreigners in any given situation is communication breakdown. And when something goes wrong, not being able to get to the bottom of it or clear the air or anything like that. So being able to understand and speak some Japanese as an ALT, I think is a big selling point. Also, in working for the small companies or the jukus or the eikaiwa companies, they have, at least the ones that I've worked for, they have very strict rules of not using any Japanese around the kids, because the philosophy, and it makes sense, the philosophy behind it is if the kids are aware that you can speak Japanese, their effort to try to communicate what they want in English is significantly lowered. And a lot of the schools kind of sell the idea of immersion. Learn through immersion is a big theme here for the English teaching business. So that pressure, like for me, like I went off the boat, I knew a fair share of Japanese and was very eager to use it and get better at it, but it was suppressed by my superiors, and I was discouraged from using it. So yeah, that I think that had a little bit to do with why I kind of resisted using my Japanese when I was hanging out with friends, native friends who also spoke English. But I was eventually able to break that barrier, and I strongly suggest anyone who plans on coming here try to avoid getting bogged down by fear of what other people will think of you or fear of sounding silly or anything like that. So yeah, there might be a lot of jobs coming up here for ALT jobs at least next year, and of course when that law does come into effect in 2020. Next, I wanted to talk about this. Okay, so some of you guys may know about Tofugu. Tofugu Japan is a website where there's articles about Japanese culture, Japanese language. They have a learning app and various learning resources on their website, tofugu.com. And once a month, they release an article of the new Japanese resources that they have discovered online, in the App Store, or in bookstores, or wherever it may be. And for the September issue, I was looking at some of the things that they were showcasing in order to maybe do a review for the podcast. And lucky for me, there was one that stuck out. I tried most of them, the ones that were available in the App Store. But there's one called Satori Reader that is just like amazing. Okay, it's free to try. It's free to download and use, but of course it's limited unless you pay for the monthly subscription, which I ended up doing because it's just so amazing. Okay, so basically this is it's called Satori Reader. So there's a bunch of these light novels or short stories that you can read in Japanese, and when you're reading them on your phone or tablet or whatever, first of all you can set the preferences to meet your level. So that means you can, for example, there's a kanji section that says you can check it so that it uses the standard representation for all words, or you can use kanji and kana representations according to your knowledge, which is the recommended setting, or just only kana. And then you can select whether or not you want to see furigana and whether or not you want to have spaces between words. And then you can tell it what your kanji knowledge is at. You can set it by grade level, like Japanese school grade level, by frequency, or by whatever textbook you happen to use. And what they have on here now is a Human Japanese Intermediate, which is 158 characters, or Genki 1, Genki 2. Genki 2, I guess, teaches 317 characters. So you can set it to what you know, and then all the stories that you end up reading are set to that level. Now, that sounds good and all, that great and all, but that's not where it stops here. When you're reading the stories, any of the words that you don't know, you just touch, and it shows you the reading and the English definition of the word. And sometimes there are set phrases where maybe the words you know everything, but you never heard that set phrase before, and you don't really know what it means. Well, for those, there's usually long descriptive explanations of what that means if you touch it. Also, that's not where it stops. See, that sounds great. That sounds like a really good resource to use, but there's even more that you can do here. Each sentence has a little play button next to it that if you push, a native Japanese person will read the sentence. And this isn't just like, it's not a robotic voice. It's not, these are really good quality recordings. And the people who are reading them sound like legit voice actors. But that sounds great, right? But that's not it. That's not the only thing you can do. This thing is amazing, I'm telling you guys. So after that, when you click the word that you've never seen before, you didn't know how to read, you didn't know the meaning to it, it shows the reading and the definition. And then there's a little button that says add to your study list. Okay? Now, this is not just a list, you guys. This is something that I've been wanting ever since I discovered the Anki app. The one of those interval-based flashcard review apps. Which, if you're not using one, you should definitely be using one. It's the best way to study vocabulary. But the thing is with those apps is you always have to put in, you either download like a preset deck that somebody's already made and uploaded in the web space or the ether or whatever into the cloud, or you create your own original deck where you have to put in each word individually. All I ever wanted was some sort of plugin or link that I could link my Denshi Jisho or my like jisho.org that would go straight to the Anki, to my Anki deck. Well, this one, so you're reading the story, you see a word that you don't know, you click it, it shows the meaning, and you put it into your study list. And then every day, that study list is like an Anki interval flashcard app. So you click on review, and all those words from all the different stories that you decided to put into your quote-unquote study list, you can now review. And it doesn't just put it puts it in both ways. It puts it in there where it shows you the kanji, and then you have to know the reading and the definition of it, the meaning of it. And then it gives you the other way. It'll give you the English definition, and you have to think of the word. So it goes in both sides. Both sides of the card get put in. So it gets put in twice every time you put it in there. I'm sure you can probably edit those preferences. All of this the whole app is very transparent and adjustable to your preferences. And it's really great. And the stories are super interesting. Like I haven't been able to, like, reading a Japanese book or a newspaper I was never able to do efficiently, like, because there's so many words that I don't know. It would take me too long, and it wasn't practical. And looking Japanese words up in the dictionary, I'm sure you all know, is pretty difficult, especially when you don't know the reading. But this, you just touch it and it shows you the meaning. And you can add those to a study deck. And you can hear a native person read the sentences. And the stories are pretty good. They're pretty well written. So, like, this is the first, like, I'm super giddy about it because this is the first time I've been able to read a Japanese book that's not a manga, that doesn't have the pictures to assist. You know, it's not just, like, people talking. And, like, it capturing my imagination. Because the other times that I've tried to read, like, light novels or anything, it took me too much time to try to figure out what the meaning of words and things are that it didn't capture my imagination. It didn't draw me in, so to speak. But so far, I've read 2 stories, and I'm on my 3rd one, and all 3 of them have me pretty spellbound by the story itself. And I'm really starting to get a feel for, like, Japanese storytelling, like how the language itself, how people use it to tell a story, and it's pretty cool. And I'm really excited about it. And I hope you guys check it out and can benefit from it as well. Also, there was when I tried to sign up for it for the full service, because if you don't sign up for it, basically you get the beginning of a story. You get, like, the first 3 chapters of a story. And if you want to read the whole story, you have to unlock it and get a subscription. The subscription is like $9 a month, or 1,000 yen if you're living in Japan. And another cool thing about, again, guys, by the way, they're not sponsoring me. I'm not getting any money I've never got any money for doing this podcast. It's free and no advertisements or anything. I just genuinely am blown away by this, and it's kind of like reignited my passion for studying the language. Right, so it's 1,000 yen for a month, and when I signed up for it, there was a problem. Like, it said I was subscribed. I got the confirmation email, but, like, my settings didn't change. So I had to contact the people and ask them what was going on. And after just a couple emails, and they responded really quickly, and after just a couple emails, they figured it out, and they hooked me up, for my troubles, they hooked me up with 3 months to their service. So I have full access to all the stuff for 3 months, and I don't have to pay. And I thought that was really cool of them to do. Yeah, it was kind of like our bad. Here's three months for free. By the way, if you do sign up, the first month is free. So yeah, but at least download it and check it out and see how freaking amazing it is. You get access to the review card feature, no problem. The only thing that's limited on it without subscribing is you don't get to read the full stories. So yeah, that is Satori Reader. And it's in both. I think they have it for both. I'm using an iPhone, but I think they have it for Android as well. So yeah, this one's huge. I've been looking since I got my new phone, I've been looking for an app to get me back into studying. And I think I have found it with this. So that's awesome news for me personally. So apparently, I haven't seen it yet, but cherry blossoms are starting to bloom, and it's October, which is really crazy because it's starting to get cold. And generally they're not expected to bloom until like end of March, beginning of April. But yeah, it's been in the news. Apparently it's been caused by the typhoons that several typhoons have hit us the past few months. But there's already been sightings of them blooming. About, I guess so far, 350 flowering trees have been spotted. says tree surgeon. Tree surgeon? It's the first time I've ever heard that title. Okay, Hiroyuki Wada told Japan's NHK News Agency that the culprit is the extreme weather that plagued the island nation throughout the summer, specifically the major typhoons that lashed the country. Because many of the trees lost their foliage during the summer's violent storms, there has been nothing to stop the bud's development. This, coupled with warmer temperatures following the storms, has resulted in the earlier-than-planned blooming. Now, I don't know what this means because I'm for, like, Hanami next year, or if it does mean anything for that, because I'm not a plant biologist and I'm really dumb. So I don't know if that's going to affect the date next year of when they're going to bloom, or they're just going to bloom. They just bloom 2 times this year, and they're going to do maybe 1 time, 2 times next year. I don't know the implications of it. But cherry blossoms are kind of a huge thing. Many of you probably know in this country. If you're planning on visiting anytime, it's usually recommended that you come late March, early April, so that you can check out the cherry blossoms, or you can be in Japan as they're blooming, because it's like another world, and it only lasts for a week or 2. So yeah, it's a big deal, and they even have like part of the weather during the cherry blossom season, and as it's approaching, the weather segments in news will talk about in what regions of Japan the cherry blossoms have started to bloom and at what stage their bloomage currently is. It says here in this article that I'm reading, the Japan National Tourism Organization keeps a detailed list of predicted bloom times. But to illustrate how unusual the recent sightings are, the list has yet to be updated for the coming season. So I guess it's kind of threw them through a loop, and they don't really know how it's going to affect next year's Hanami. So yeah, that's weird. But yeah, Hanami is one of my favorite times in this country. There's a lot of cool little festivals that happen that I enjoy, but Hanami is really cool. It's best to be in the countryside. Really good for like solitary walks and stuff. I've done the Yoyogi Park picnic Hanami thing, and it's cool, but like they say, Hanayori Dango. It's more about the partying than it is the cherry blossoms. Right. Next, we're gonna go to my little segment that I've started doing. Last week, I asked HelloTalk. Last week, I got on HelloTalk, and maybe it was a couple weeks ago, I don't know. I asked Japanese people what are some things that they think foreigners should know or consider before coming to Japan. So let me pull it up real quick here, and we can get exactly what I said. By the way, if you want to follow me on HelloTalk, my name is BananaFish. I recently posted up a stupid picture of my face. Where is it? Oh, okay. 外国の人が日本に来る前、何を知っておくべきでしょうか? That's what I asked. So one more time. 外国の人が日本に来る前、何を知っておくべきでしょうか? What should they know before they come to Japan? So, we've got a few answers to this. Some of them were a bit more tongue-in-cheek than others. For example, the first response I got was from a girl named Kana, and she said, ハンバーガーが小さいことかな? So, she said that hamburgers were small here, which, very funny. Anyway, another one, 歩きタバコは罰金. 歩きタバコは罰金. So, walking and smoking is prohibited anywhere, and that if the police are bored enough and they spot you smoking and walking around, you may be fined. So that's a little bit of helpful information. So next we have Mikankan. Mikankan, that's a funny name. I don't know if you guys know I don't know if it's a oyaji gyagu or like a hayakuchi kotoba or something like that. It's arumikan no ue ni arumikan. Arumikan no ue ni arumikan. So there's an orange on top of the aluminum can, basically is what it translates into. Okay, back on track. Mikankan, he says, some Japanese, especially older people, are not open-minded. You may feel uncomfortable when you encounter these people. And then in Japanese he writes, それはただ日本は昔から島国で内向的な性格の人たちが多いからで、たまには気分を悪くすることもあるかもしれないけど、気にしないでほしいな. So that's very kind of Mikankan to say. So basically he's saying that, okay, so from a long time ago, Japan's been a island country. And so some not introverted or just like naikoteki, like I guess closed-minded people. There are a lot of closed-minded people, so there may be instances in which someone tries to make you feel crappy. So please don't worry about that so much. Would be my best attempt at a translation. Sakura said, あとドリンクのサイズも小さい. Also, 通りすがりで目があっても笑い返さない。日本のサービス業は世界一. Okay, so she said three things there. She said drink sizes are smaller, right? This is true, very true. So if you're an American, just imagine small size in Japan is actually small. Medium size is like the small size in America. And then large size is like medium size. But sometimes it's not even the case. Sometimes large size is closer to a small in America. I don't know. It's been so long. I don't really remember how big those sizes are. Right. And she also said that when you're walking and you make eye contact with somebody, you don't need to smile at them. Or don't expect them to smile back at you. And Japan is number one in the service industry. And then she wrote, lastly in English, and Japan is safety and clean. Which is also true. Rio said, 日本にはクレジットカードは使えないお店がたくさんあります。So there are lots of stores in Japan in which you cannot use a credit card. They do not accept credit card. Yes, everybody always has cash on them, generally. So if you're planning on paying with most of your stuff with credit card, prepare to be disappointed. And that's it. That's all the stuff I got for this time. I've asked a few other questions on here. I guess I'll save them for next time. But that was last week. That was the segment, the HelloTalk segment for you guys. That's it. I think that's all I have to say for today. Also, I interviewed Nobu today. He's going to be the next guest on the episode I'll upload later this week. And he had something else to add to this, what he wants foreigners to know before they come to Japan. When you go to the toilet and you see all those buttons, please press with caution. Don't be pressing buttons all willy-nilly because there's a lot of various things that could occur if you press the wrong button. For example, of course, this is the bidet, which is becoming more common in the States from what I understand. You get splashed in the face with the water. Or there's also one that I'm always paranoid of accidentally pushing is like yobidashi. There's like a yobidashi button in most toilets, which basically like older people when they're like they can't stand up or something happens or there's an accident or blah blah blah. Anyway, if you need help, you press that button and someone will come to assist you. So if you accidentally press that button, you might be in for an awkward conversation. But the thing is, a lot of the toilets, they don't have the little handle that we're used to in America that you press down. A lot of times there's actually a button that says flush. In most cases, in Tokyo, there's going to be some English on there, but there are cases in which there is no English. So use your skills and press with caution. Make sure, double check before you press a button. I do, even if it says flush in English. I'm always hesitate before pressing the button because I don't want some weird guy joining me in the toilet thinking I am stuck or some nonsense like that. So that is Nobu's advice. If you want to hear that episode for yourself, stick around. Subscribe as always. Yes, subscribe. Stick around for later in this week. I'll be putting that up soon. But that's it for today. Thank you very much for listening. And before we go, I would like to share with you another song that I enjoy by a band called Tennis Coats. And this is a song titled Papaya. Hope you enjoy. Thanks as always. じゃあまた次回。さようなら。